Unprecedented Ukrainian drone strikes on Russia. On January 24, 2025, the world witnessed one of the boldest and largest-scale strikes by Ukraine on Russian territory. Over 120 drones targeted key infrastructure in several Russian regions, including an oil refinery in Ryazan, a major fuel depot, and a missile component factory in Bryansk. These strikes marked the most significant aerial attack in the history of the conflict. The operation, according to experts, was meticulously planned and aimed at undermining Russia's military and industrial capabilities. Russian media reported multiple explosions at key sites, resulting in massive fires. Some regions experienced temporary power outages. In Moscow, the operations of 3 airports were halted, while 6 others in different cities were temporarily closed. Russian authorities claimed their air defense systems intercepted most of the drones, but the full extent of the damage is still being assessed. Ukrainian officials have not officially confirmed responsibility for the attack, but high-ranking military representatives hinted that it was a retaliatory measure in response to Russia's continued aggression. Analysts believe that strikes of this magnitude were intended to demonstrate Ukraine's military capabilities, catching many observers off guard. Political reactions and statements from world leaders. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos, made a bold declaration. He stated that Ukraine would never recognize the territories occupied by Russia, calling such recognition legally and morally impossible. Zelensky emphasized that Ukraine would continue to fight for the return of all its lands, even if it caused dissatisfaction among some allies. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump took an unexpected step on a different matter, but one that also caused significant global resonance. He signed an order declassifying documents related to the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., and Robert Kennedy. This move sparked a wave of discussions worldwide and fueled numerous conspiracy theories. While this decision was not directly related to the Ukrainian conflict, some analysts view it as an attempt to divert attention from the escalating situation in Europe. European leaders, including the French president and the German chancellor, called for restraint on both sides of the conflict. However, following Ukraine's massive drone strikes, the prospects for diplomatic resolution appear increasingly dim. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg stated that the alliance is prepared to increase its support for Ukraine if the situation continues to escalate. Russia's reaction and potential consequences. The Kremlin quickly responded to the events, labeling the drone strikes an act of terrorism and accusing Ukraine of attempting to bring the war onto Russian soil. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov announced that Moscow would take firm and decisive measures in response to these attacks. On the same day, Russia launched a massive missile strike on Ukrainian infrastructure, targeting energy facilities in Kyiv and Kharkiv. The escalation of the conflict prompted strong reactions from the international community. The United Nations convened emergency discussions on new sanctions against Russia and potential measures to pressure both sides into preventing a full-scale war that could spread beyond the region. However, neither side appears willing to compromise. Experts warn that Ukraine's attack could have far-reaching consequences. On one hand, it showcases Kyiv's military strength, which might bolster Western support. On the other hand, such actions could provoke an even harsher response from Russia, increasing civilian casualties. The future of the conflict and global impact. The events of January 24, 2025, could mark a turning point in the war. Many analysts are asking, will this step by Ukraine expedite the end of the conflict, or will it lead to further escalation? Some believe that such actions might force Russia to engage in negotiations, but others warn they could trigger even more devastating attacks. Amid these developments, millions of Ukrainians continue to suffer the consequences of war. The humanitarian situation is worsening despite the efforts of international organizations. The number of refugees in Europe has reached record highs, putting significant pressure on host countries. Meanwhile, the world watches in tension. Questions about how far the parties are willing to go and how effectively the global community can intervene remain unanswered. One thing is clear: the world will never be the same. Every new event adds more layers to this complex geopolitical crisis. Conclusion: the events of January 24, 2025, will be remembered as one of the most intense days in the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Whether this leads to peace or further escalation remains to be seen. The world looks to its leaders, whose decisions will shape the future of Europe and, perhaps, the entire world.